he was 4 times world champion, and he had the best speed in the fleet at this period. Everyone knows him now as an America's Cup sailor, but if you look carefully on this picture, you could see that the guy is doing a tuck in the strong wind, and it means that he is able to do it. And it's the guy who is not small. He's 188 centimeters high, and he's able to do nice tucks without having any problems. Yeah, so this is the image which have to be stuck in your head. So we are going to be talking about tucking, basic stuff, jibing, the acceleration and stopping the boat with some examples on the pictures, holding the position on the starting line, and the mark roundings. Yeah. So I will go briefly about every single subject, but first we are going to start with a small quiz. Yeah. So we are going to go to next slide. So everyone sees a laser from the top. And if you can leave in the comment, I'll give you 30 seconds to write a number with the answer. And then we will see how people are feeling. So the question is, where is the center of the weight of the laser hull? So as it is an empty hull without any rigging, where is the center of the weight? Beside the ratchet block, middle of the center board, and one at the top of the center board. So let's have a look on the answers. Four, two, three, three, two, two, three, 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 two. So there are a couple of people are saying 4. Harshita is saying 4. Harshita, you can check your boat. Number 2, number 3, number 2. So you see that there is a big variety. I see the majority of the people are saying number 3, but there are also people who are thinking it's number 4 and number 3. So let's look at the correct answer. Yeah, I'm switching to the next slide. And as you can see, let me move the chat away. The center of weight is actually beside the ratchet block, and number 3 was correct. So people who are writing the 2 and 4 and 1. So I'm not saying it's exactly true, but in the most cases, if you lift your boat from the ratchet block eye strap, yeah, from the metal strap. So the boat is pretty balanced, and it's right in the center. So we were doing some testing, and usually when you're weighing the boat, we are lifting it from the ratchet block eye loop, and it should be pretty balanced. Some of the boats are pointing a little bit with the bow towards the ground or with the stern towards the ground, but the more or less middle point is the ratchet block area. Why did I ask you? Because we really need to know where is the center of the boat, where is the point where we have to control our balancing. Yeah, so that's the first question of the quiz. And the second question is, we're going ahead, 1 second. Where is the center of mass of the sail? So same thing, answer in the chat. What do you think about where is the center of the weight of the sailor in that picture and in the real world as well? So go ahead and answer. Jamie McMahon. Actually, you are wrong, Jamie. It's number 1. It's especially for you. It was done space. All the weight is in the space. So that was specifically for you, this number 1. So yeah, that was much easier. That the question, which is, 1 second. Yeah. So the tick is beside the number 3. So you can see all the weight concentrated by the bum of the sailor. Yeah. So it's very important to know about the body balancing, because when we are asking the sailors to shift the body weight around the boat, it's very important what are we shifting, yeah? Because a lot of people are actually moving with their head and they're thinking that they are moving the full body weight, and it's not affecting the boat so much, and it creates a lot of issues. So remember that all the weight is at the bottom beside your bum, yeah? So when you have to balance the boat with the windward and leeward heel, it's very important to shift your whole weight through the bum towards the cockpit, towards the center of the boat, or more to the edge of the boat. Yeah, this is an important thing to understand, because all the next subjects is going to be about where you actually put your main weight and how you put the forces on the boat. Yeah, so that's why I created those small quizzes, and this is things which people see from outside, but when they actually sail, they don't feel where is their weight. So a lot of sailors just moving with the head and they think that it's the whole body. No, here we have only 5-6 kilos, maybe some people more, some people less. And let's go ahead into tucking. So before we go into the tucking, I'm sorry, so I think it's a wrong file. Just give me a sec. I think it's a wrong file, but let's go ahead. So looking in the talks, so I divided the talking in three main areas. Yeah. So it's an entry, a roll, and an exit of the talk. Yeah. So that's a very important part. And that's a very important areas to split our talking into sort of levels. So first, second, and third level. So where we start, we do an action, and then we exit. Yeah. So what is happening with the talking? There are different style of talking, but the base one we take from light wind. So first step is improving our talks in the light wind, where you understand the effect of the body on the boat, where you understand how much forces you need to put and to create the roll, and how much output you can get out of the sail when you are exiting off the tack. So I put some tips here on the right hand side. Yeah, what we should focus on each step of the tack. So when we are going into the entry period, which is going to be shown in the next slide, where when you break apart all the tacking moments, so where we have to focus on. Yeah. So I'm keeping as a base here the light wind style, and then you can just slightly adjust your wait a second, resume share. Sorry, I was not sharing the screen, yeah, with you. Is everyone seeing the screen? Okay, yes, good. Yes. Thank you. Sorry. So we go up again because you didn't see this part. So I divided it in 3 steps. and there are some tips what we need to focus on. Yeah. So everyone was told probably when they were learning how to sail that you need to throw your back leg over the hiking strap when you go into the tuck. But what are my suggestion is like, when do we put the leg and how do we use it and what do we use it for? So we are gonna go straight away into the examples and keep these tips in your mind. Yeah. So those pictures are done yesterday. We had a privilege to sail in Malta Bay, and Vishnu was our guinea pig yesterday for the showing us how it needs to be done. Yeah, it's a pretty good example, and there are 6 pictures, and if you look into each of them carefully, you can actually pick up the whole overall picture without even seeing the video. Yeah. So if we talk about the slide 1, where it's a first part of the talk, so we call it an entry, where we actually use the initial speed of the boat to point up. Yeah. As you can see, the tiller is not pushed all the way. It's only till the end of the cockpit. It's very important not to push the tiller too hard. Otherwise, you stop the boat. We just go with the flow. We go halfway, let the boat turn itself over the close haul course. And when we are getting close to the head to wind position, remember to keep your main sheet really tight and all the way block to block. If you look at the slide 2, and you will notice that the sail is still powered up and we are almost in head to wind position. So it's very important to keep the sail tight and block to block, because a lot of people are forgetting about this thing and they open the main sheet too early and they don't hold the power in the sail all the way through the turning of the boat. So if we are going into step 3, that's when we are head to wind, and then that's when we create the maximum roll of the boat. So in the picture 2, we just initiated the roll by leaning out with the upper body. A lot of people are actually making a big mistake is doing the upper body pumps in the step 1, while we have to do it when we are almost head to wind. And this is the major mistake why people can't achieve a big roll for the roll tuck. Yeah. If we delay our upper body movement for as late as possible, then you will achieve a maximum roll. And then you can see on the exit, when you are crossing from side to side, there is a lot of hill, and we are almost like climbing up the ladder on the deck. You can see that the sailor in the picture 4 is just climbing up the boat. So he is standing on the side of the cockpit and holding himself to the edge of the boat to climb up. And plus the sail is getting extra power on the new tack to heal the boat more. So all this healing is created. Yes. What do we do next with this healing? Why we create it is to actually exit with a big propulsion of the sail. Yeah, we want to use all this leverage to get the pump with the sail and flatten the boat. So the more effort we put, and as you see on the number 6, on the picture number 6, the person is nearly all the way out of the boat, and the wind here is about 6 knots, just to flatten the boat. And the more power and the more leverage we put into that motion, we will get the maximum outcome of the speed from the tack. The critical part here is the sail trimming on the exit. So a lot of people are actually forgetting to release the main sheet. So while they're flattening the boat, the main issue for people here is they're tightening the main sheet at the same time as they flatten the boat. That's a big mistake, because we choke the sail and we don't achieve out of our pump anything. So with the release main sheet and with it rudder. Yeah. So that's an important part where you have to be quite focused. And once the boat is flat, make sure that you're not staying all the way in the hiking strap. Get back into the center because there is not enough wind to keep you in the hiking strap. And then you can close the main sheet, because when we are on the flat position, then you can close the main sheet. So we are shifting to the next slide. And there is another example of the 4.7 sailor. And as you can see, it's also been done yesterday. The 4.7 sailors, they have a much lighter weight and they have a much smaller rig. So what can they do differently from the standard sailors? Because at the end, the laser, radial, and standard is designed for heavier people, and we have the kids who are sailing on the 4.7. So what sort of technique they can adjust? So in general, the 4.7 sailors, they use the same style as standard sailors. Is the only thing is they delay their transition for much longer period. Yes, and you can see the kid here in the picture number 2 is using the boot of the back leg, which is fixed under the grab rail. That's another technique to help the leeward side to start rotation a little bit faster, and it gives you quite a forceful effect to lift the leeward side of the boat, yeah, because the kids don't have such a good leverage than the big boys. And also you can see that you can shift your bum closer to the edge of the boat compared to the standard sailors, and almost touching the water with the upper body. That's the way we should actually create a roll, because a lot of kids, when they come into 4.7, they are really afraid of pushing the boat towards them. Yeah, they're really afraid of creating a big roll. So they're developing a very bad technique through the whole 4.7 time of sailing, and then they come to radial and we start all over again. So why not to start it straight away with the right technique? And you can see the exit of the tack is exactly in the same way as in the standard and radial done. So we're going to the
Alex, there are some
slide, and just a small remark. It's the same tacking stuff, but the head positioning and the arm positioning through the tack. As you can see that the person who is tacking here is Vishnu. So while shifting from side to side, so his bum is slightly shifted back in the cockpit, and the head is aiming, and you can see that the arm is also pointing towards the bow on the other side. And that's very important. On the transition and going to other side, we have to go across and towards the bow, because the bow is a little bit narrower and you're lifting the stern, and when you're exiting, you are initiating the speed much faster. And also you have space for switching the hands with the tiller extension. So now I'm going to some questions, because I can hear that there are some questions here. Sorry. So there are a couple of questions here. There is a question about, should we push our weight to the leeward side in order to roll the boat and then create the windward pump? I would not suggest to make it like, maybe in 4.7 it's important, but in the standard we have already initial speed, which is enough to start rotation, and it's more important to bring the boat on top of you while being head to wind. Yeah, it's only in the super light between 2 knots to 4, 5 knots, we create a leeward pump to create some extra speed to start turning into the tack. Yeah, so that's the technique when we create a leeward. But if we have speed, if we're sailing normally, when it's 5 knots and above of the wind, we don't need to go leeward to create this extra heel. Yeah, it's the same question by 2 people. To confirm the rudder position, so when you are exiting from the tack, you have to be below the close haul course slightly, and with the rudder already in the straight line, so that when you are flattening the boat, you don't have any friction in the rudder, because you want to maximize your speed on the exit through your pump. So make sure that you have the rudder straight when you are exiting from the tack with the flattening of the boat. Okay, so that's the questions we had. And now we go ahead to the next slide. So here I put some tips for the tacks which are done differently and in the which wind conditions we are doing. So I divided it in 3 categories. Yeah, so we have the wind between 4 to 10 knots. That's what we call light wind sailing. So where we create the maximum roll, where we want to propel through the sail all the power, and we want to exit with the fastest speed. So that's where we are creating the bigger rolls and where we focus a lot. But then we have a medium wind where we start to reduce the roll, because the tacks needs to be a little bit faster with the same technique of transition, going from side to side with a little bit of upper body out, yeah, but at the same time bringing your ass from the hiking position onto the deck, and then just using the upper body to go into the tack, yeah. And then we have super windy conditions, which are 14 knots and up, where we don't use any roll. And that's where a lot of people are making mistakes, and they forget that they have to go for fast tacks. So in the windy conditions, as you can see here, that's exactly after the tack. The radial sailor is fully extended in the hiking strap, yeah? So we cannot afford ourselves to create any heel, because we already been in the same position on the previous tack. So while we are shifting from one side to another side, the boat starts to heel. And as soon as we get a maximum heel, it takes a lot of effort to flatten it, yeah? So we want to avoid any heeling, and it's probably more like focusing like on the skiff boats where you're tacking from flat to flat. So it's a fast tacking with the pushing the tiller away hard, yeah? Going from side to side underneath the boom, and the technique is quite particular there, where a lot of people are getting stuck with the life jacket to the boom, because mainly they're forgetting that they have to make themselves flat. We have a lot of kicker on, and they always get stuck under the boom. So how to make yourself flat is when we are going across, what you saw in the previous picture, where the person is going with the hand first and diving with the shoulder down underneath the boom. That's where it becomes very critical, yeah? To go under the boom with the shoulder down, yeah? Then you have plenty of space, and you are easily shifting the sides from one to another. Yeah, there is a question. So there is a question from George. Can we ease a little bit the gang? We don't have any gangs around us. We have only Vang. It's a good one. Yeah, you can ease, but you have to be quite agile, and you have to be having access to the kicker rope. I know a lot of kids are not tying the end of the kicker to the center board, and they cannot access the Vang, because the Vang is on the other side floating in the sea. So if it's all tight next to you and you can access it and release it a little bit, you're more than welcome. But we don't have so much time in the race to release the kicker, so you have to learn how to go underneath the boom without releasing the kicker. And if we remind ourselves the first picture where Tom Slingsby was tucking under the boom, he was a big guy with a big chest, and he was managing to get under the boom without any trouble. So the people were able to do that, and we should also be able to do that. Yeah. So it's all about how we make ourselves flat, and this low positioning and going with the head as low as possible to the deck. That's the key to get a good tuck without releasing the kicker. So do we have any more questions about the tucking? I don't see any. So we are going ahead, and we can have a discussion at the end. But now I'm going to move towards the next slide, which is going to be jibing. So with the jibing, again, we are taking as an example the light wind, because the light wind is quite critical, where we can gain a lot of advantage with the right jibing. And here we have two ways of jibes. So the classical one, by just pulling the main sheet from the ratchet block, is here we can use, in the step one, is the creating the first heel through the leeward. So the body is shifted to the leeward side to create the leeward heel. Then we create a massive windward heel in one go. As you can see, the boat is going from position 1 to position 2, all the way with the mast going to another side. And in that moment, we are actually trimming the main sheet to bring the boom inside and keep changing the course. So as soon the boat starts to come on top of you and the boom starts to come on top of you, we try to adjust the course with a bigger angle. And once the boom goes on the other side, we have a maximum heel, which we can utilize for a biggest pump we can do. Yeah, here the same. The more effort we put into the pump, you can see on the picture number 5 that there is a lot of pressure on the sail. So there is a lot of power is going into the jibe, and there is a big outcome from that jibe. So we have a lot of speed. If we would see the video, there is a lot of speed on the exit. This is not illegal. This is all legal. It's just have to be done smooth and in one go. Yeah. Because a lot of people will tell me that, oh, what about the rule 42? Or what about getting extra speed out of the tuck and out of the jibe? We are not getting any extra speed because it's quite a marginal one. You will just feel between sailor to sailor where you can stick your bow out for clear wind. That's the only advantage you can get, but you will not jump one step ahead. And if you're not doing it continuously from one tuck to another tuck, you are not gonna get in troubles. And this is the technique we can use, and I suggest to practice a lot. I know that there are a lot of sailors now locked down, but there are still some sneaky ones who have access to the backyard where they have a lake, and they can focus right now. If they have access to the water, they can focus on some of this maneuvering stuff because they wouldn't have anyone else to train with. Yeah. So this is the traditional jibe, and it's very important here how we position our weight. Okay, now we're moving to the next slide. Let's go. And this is a jibe which is required. It's also for the light winds. It requires a little bit of synchronization with the whole your body, because here the way we catch the main sheet, we have to shift it over our head, and a lot of people are actually putting a loop over their neck and then they get tangled. So this jibe is very efficient in terms of changing the course with the minimum angle change, because you are helping through the whole jibe with the whole sail power. This one is good for small angles. The previous one is good for the big angles where you end up in the broad reach and you get the maximum speed. Here you get a little bit less speed, but it's so narrow that you don't waste any space, which is quite important in the leeward mark approach, where you don't want to end up on the edges and you want to just jibe and end up next to your mark. So if we are going through the steps of this jibe, you can see that we have the windward heel and the picture number 1, and we utilize this windward heel towards more windward heel until the boat almost capsizes towards you. Then you stand up and grab the end of the main sheet and create the power with the sail to flatten the boat again. And while you are flattening the boat, you are pulling the whole main sheet from the end of the boom, which is creating a lot of power. Yeah. So this power we are using to accelerate the boat. And then when we are shifting the boom behind our neck, so it has to go behind our neck. And then we are going to go to the step 7 and 8. We are still sitting on the previous tack until the sail fills up with the wind on the other side. And then while we are shifting from side to side, we are pulling the main sheet again to get another pump. So this one requires a little bit of skills, this jibe, but it's pretty good. I don't see people using this very often, but it's quite practical and it does work in the narrow situations. And here I wrote some guidelines about what angles we are using for different jibing. Yeah. So what I show you in the first one, we had the wind, which was about 4 to 8 knots, very light. So we had to do the maximum rolls and the maximum pumps on the exit. So for that cases, we are using big angles to change the course and to create the power on almost broad reach course. So if we are talking from the dead downwind direction, we are changing the course almost to 30 degrees to the other side to jibe, exit on the same angle, and then you are correcting the course towards the downwind direction. So as you can see that we sail a little bit of extra distance, but because we create so much extra power and speed that we can compromise through this extra distance by having double speed. Yeah. So don't be afraid to go for wide angles in light wind to make your jibes. In the medium wind, we first of all we jibe less, and second of all we jibe with the smaller angles. Yeah, because if you exit on the higher angle, you will end up in the broad reach, and if you are not able to switch the sides, you will start capsizing. Yeah. And for the strong winds, my biggest tip here is to go for the really narrow angle and almost try to jibe dead downwind by changing the course to 5 to 10 degrees. Let the sails start to jibe a little bit through the leech. Yeah, help it with the main sheet, and as soon the boom is going across, already correct the course towards the dead downwind position, because a lot of kids, especially here in Malta, having a lot of troubles with jibing, because we have a lot of strong winds through the winter period, and I witness a lot of capsizes because they don't correct the course while jibing. So they end up in the broad reach. The sail becomes overpowered. They're still shifting from side to side, and they do capsize continuously. So I'm checking some questions. So Vishnu is getting about boom hitting shifting water, I think it's linked probably here in the example. It wasn't the best one, but I suggest like to get all the things done before the boom is touching the water. In light wind, we can afford it, but in the strong wind, as soon the boom touches the water, it's a clear answer for your future capsize. Yeah, so we have to do everything with the flying boom over the water. Never allow to do any touching with the boom to the water in the strong wind. In the light wind, it's fine because it means you put a lot of heeling in your boat. But in the strong wind, everything should be done without any heel. Same as the tacking. So when we jibe in the strong wind, it all has to be from flat to flat without any heeling of the boat. Okay. Any more questions? The maximum we can have is just touching the end of the boom towards the water, and that's the max. You don't want to dip the sail into the water. So just touching is enough in the light wind, but in strong wind, even touching with the very end of the boom, it's definitely a capsize. So keep an eye on that stuff. Okay, so I'm shifting to the next slide, and small reminder to people how to stop the boat. Probably everyone knows what to do. Everyone saying that they can do it without any problems, but I've seen the troubles, and the main trouble where is that people are trying to stop the boat. So as you see here in the position 1, the person is approaching the mark on the full speed. Yeah. Then he's releasing the kicker to slow down. And that's a critical part because a lot of people are just like opening the main sheet, leaving the kicker on, and they think that they will stop. Remember, if you have the kicker on, and if you think about the first lesson about the sail trimming, what it does to you, you will notice that the boat is still moving forward. So if you want to stop and you want to stop fast, remember to release the kicker before stopping the boat. And of course, we can use the reverse power of the sail to slow down our speed. Here is the trickiest part where a lot of people are doing the mistake, especially without understanding where they position their weight. And as you can see here, the sailor is almost on his boat knees, standing up. Why it needs to be done that way is because we need to bring our weight, the sailor's weight, into the center of the boat. Because when you are sitting on the windward side, without any sail power, the boat becomes heeled on the windward side. So this heeling is helping us to drift the boat. Or if you reverse with the sail, it also helps us to tuck on the opposite tack. So it's very important to keep the boat super flat to slow down with the reversing your sail. A lot of people who just push the boom out, but they're still sitting on the windward side, end up with a tack which they didn't mean to do and they didn't want to do. Yeah. So remember, if you want to slow down with backing the sail, bring all your weight to the center of the boat, that you don't have any heeling to the windward side and no heeling to the leeward side. So the boat is absolutely flat. So any questions about stopping the boat? I don't see any questions. So this is something probably people know, but it's a good thing to remind to the sailors, especially now after 2 months off. They will forget where is what, and it's a good thing to remind people where we have to think. There is one question here from Andreas. Andreas, you are very active today. I'll leave this question. That's from the previous topic. It's from the previous topic, there is no such a thing. If you touch the boom with the water, that's illegal or legal. It's more about the efficiency and how much you feel you can actually flatten the boat, or you actually can do, what can you do with this much heeling. Yeah, so maybe it's so much overheeled that you will not exit with a really nice and smooth way, but there is no such a thing as legal or illegal if the boom is touching the water. Yes, Niels, there is a question about do we need to use any control lines? Yes, we do need to use only the kicker. The Cunningham and the outhaul we don't touch because we are still in the preparational period, and we are not thinking so much about Cunningham and outhaul. The only control lines we are working at this stage is the kicker and the main sheet, the two main things which are powering the whole sail. Okay, moving to the next slide. So this is, oh, sorry, we're going back. So I created this So I created this slideshow. This is the whole pre-starting routine, pre-starting sequence, where we are holding the position in the light wind, and then we are preparing for the acceleration, and then we are doing the actual acceleration. So if you see on the left-hand side the traffic light, this is our preparation towards green light. Yeah, so while we have a red light, we are not allowed to go yet. I'm just creating an imaginary situation. Yeah, we are not allowed to go yet and cross the line. What we can do is hold our position. Especially in the light wind, we are holding the position with keeping the weight very central in the boat. Yeah, to come to the previous slide, we cannot have any heeling, because as soon as you get any windward heel, by just putting your bum on the deck, you automatically create the windward heel. You will not be able to hold the position for a long period. You will be only able to drift to one side. Yeah, so the drift is starting much earlier, and it's much harder to control the boat. Yeah, to hold the position more efficiently, we have to bring our weight central. And as you can see in this picture number 1, where the sailor is pointing head to wind, but most important, head to wind with the bow, is to secure his position, that he has space to bear away. And as soon the boat starts to drift backwards, he starts to bear away. And in number 2, he creates a small pump, not a full pump. You can see that he is bearing away with the rudder without touching the sail. It's released main sheet, and he is just sculling in one direction, which is legal. As long as you are not crossing to the other side with the tiller, you can scull in the forceful manner to bear away until the bow is turning to the below close hold position. Once we are below the close hold position, we can pull the main sheet a little bit, create a small pump, flatten the boat, and we can come back to the initial head to wind position in number 1. And in that circle, we can hold our position in quite a long time, especially in the light winds. We can almost stay in the same spot for entire 2 minutes or 3 minutes. If we have a right boat handling, and if we practice it a lot, it's very easy to stay for 2 minutes in the same spot when we have no current and we don't have any other factors. Yeah, so this technique is very good for holding the position. But then what do we do next? Yeah, we want to execute out of this position with a good speed. So first thing we need to do is we go to the yellow light where we are preparing for the acceleration. And here is the most important, is to create the maximum heel and to bear away in the correct course. So you can see the picture number, sailor is head to wheel, totally flapping, and there is no speed in the boat. So when we have no speed in the boat, the rudder does not have any effect. So we actually start to paddle with the rudder in one direction to turn the boat. If we don't do it, you can push the tiller away and the boat will not do anything because you don't have any flow around the foils, which are helping us to turn. When you have zero speed, the rudder is not working. So you actually have to create the flow around the foils by forceful movements, and that's the only way to bear away until we turn into correct angle. The correct angle is below the close hold course. Once we turned, we create the maximum hill by putting all our weight on the knees. You see that the knees are fixed on the leeward side in the picture number 2. And here we can create the maximum roll for the acceleration. And then we are going into the next slide where we actually doing the acceleration. So now we created this hill. So it's a big hill again. And what can we do with it is use the upper body. And as you can see in the picture number 3, by putting maximum power while the boat is flattening into upper body, you see how much the mast bends. Yeah, that's how much power we generate by a forceful pump. It can be only one pump, and because it's such a forceful one and we don't have so much wind, we have to be really quick with shifting our weight inside the boat. As you can see, the transition between picture number 3 and 4 is very big. So here's with a very open main sheet with a lot of power in the sail, almost fully hiking, and suddenly in the picture number 4, he's sitting in the middle of the boat with a main sheet almost block to block and sitting upright. So this is the important part where we have to end up with our flattening, that the mast is not rolling on top of you. We have to be so quick of getting inside the boat that the mast doesn't pass the upright position. It shouldn't be going on top of the windward side. So that's the art of acceleration, that you cannot finish with the boat overheeled. As soon as you are getting overheeled, all the things you've done before are gone nowhere, and you are just losing the speed and you start to drift sideways. Now we are going to the questions. Andrea, by leaning windward, this question is related to which topic? Because there are a lot of questions from Andreas. Okay, if Vishnu can help me with some of the questions.
Yeah, I'm doing it on the chat.
So in the picture number 4, the ideal position is to get inside the boat as soon as possible, and then according to your wind and the speed, we just adjust our positioning. And this is not a fixed place where you are going to be racing all the way through. That's just at the end of the tack. And then we are gonna adjust our weight again according to the wind strength. Yeah, if it's light, we will have to sit more inside. If it's windier, we are gonna just work with the upper body first, because here it's a light wind on the picture, so I don't think he's gonna be able to sit more out. But for me, the most important part here is the finishing of the tack in the upright position, that the mast is not going on top of the sailor. And probably he's gonna sit more inside the cockpit, and the bomb shouldn't be sitting too far back. So we want to be sitting right beside the ratchet block, and where you can have the main sheet next to your leg, coming in straight line from your block. light with sea forward. Forward, it's not changing anything. It's only in the super light wind, but we don't sail so much in below 4 knots of wind. Okay, so we are going to a next slide, and this is the last topic we are going to talk about, and this is also part of the boat handling. Someone is keep drawing here the green lights. Someone really wants to sail, and I'm not against it. We are all willing to go out and start our preparation for the season, but unfortunately we cannot do it. So we have to talk about the stuff which we usually don't talk at all. So here I just wrote down a couple of things you have to focus on the mark roundings. And we have two types of mark roundings. The windward mark rounding, where when we are on the trapezoid course, we are approaching the first mark, and we have to go around the first mark and straight downwind. Or we are on the leg 2, where we are sailing on the outer loop. We're on the mark 2, and we have to bear away straight away into the downwind. So this is the advices for the mark rounding when you are going from upwind to the downwind. So it's very important here to understand that we are changing the course from upwind to a dead downwind, which is a big course change. So we have to reset our sail, and we have to reset a lot of things in the boat. So here I created some guideline what we should prioritize in the trimming of the sail when we are approaching and leaving the first mark, because a lot of people, they don't have sort of routine. Sometimes they grab the kicker, sometimes they grab the outhole, sometimes they grab the Cunningham without any pattern. So if you have some pattern, it's very helpful for you to be more efficient and more quick on the mark roundings, because we don't want to spend too much time on rounding the marks. We want to leave this place as soon as possible. Yeah, we don't want to waste time on resetting our equipment. Yeah, so if we create sort of like a list, and you just approach the mark and you depower the Cunningham, which allows you to point a little bit higher to fetch the mark, especially when you are slightly below the ley line, it's always a good thing. Then we have the kicker ready all the time for bearing away, because if you don't release the kicker and you try to bear away, the boat won't bear away easily. It will just continue reaching for a while. Yeah. And then the outhole and the centerboard, of course, when we are already on the downwind course. So that's a guideline which is suggestible, but that's not a rule where you have to do it. But I know from the experience of the sailors, and they do like to have sort of a routine and to do it in the same way, so they don't think too much about what are they going to do next. So when they have a routine, it becomes an automatic, and they think about other stuff, which is more important. When we are leaving the mark, the windward mark, we are always wanting to get the first wave, we want to get the first shift, and that's more important than actually looking, where is my Cunningham rope, where is my kicker rope. Those stuff should be quite in place where we do not think about it. Yeah. So I created the same guideline for the bottom mark, which is usually the gate in the laser fleet, but in the smaller events like nationals or club events, we have only one mark, but we always round it in the same way, on starboard, on port. Yeah. So usually on the trapezoid course, it's mark number 3 or number 4 or number 5 with short upwind to the finish line. Yeah. So here we should also have a routine. And of course, we should remove the centerboard when we are approaching the last 3 boat lengths to the leeward mark. We have to remove the centerboard from the cleats, because all the control lines are behind the centerboard. And I saw a lot of kids who are actually trying to reach the outhole line over the centerboard, and it looks because they're doing something automatic, but at the same time it's not comfortable. So they're trying to reach the line which is on the other side of the boat, and here you have an obstacle. So you are jumping over the obstacle, so which is not an ergonomic movement and it's not efficient. So always try to make it easy and simple for yourself. So just remove the centerboard down. So that's one thing out of the way. Then sort out the outhole, because that's the thing which is pretty fixed, and we don't need to adjust it so much on the next leg. So if you have the marks on the boom, you already know on which mark I'm gonna set it. And then you adjust the Cunningham if it's a strong wind, but it's not necessary. And the last part, which we can break in two, is the kicker. Do we tighten the kicker or we don't? So I'm dividing it in two ways. So if it's really windy, where you have to complete the mark rounding, you don't want to have extra power on your sail. So in that case, we don't tighten the kicker to complete the mark rounding. We want to have less power because you are coming already with a lot of speed, which is hard to control and which is hard to manage. So we want to keep the kicker for after the mark rounding. Usually we keep it after the mark rounding. But if it's a light air and you want to do a nice roll mark rounding, we should adjust the kicker because it's extra power in the sail, which while you're tightening the main sheet, it's always gonna be there. So there are two things to keep in mind. In the light wind, we do pull the kicker to have a nice mark rounding with the power in the sail, and opposite in the strong wind, we don't tighten it because we don't want this extra power. We just want to round it safely and continue by pulling the main sheet and then taking off all the kicker away. So any questions about this topic? Rounding the downwind leg. Should we release the outhole before rounding or after? So we can do it in depending on the wind, yeah? If you are having, and also depending on the situation. There are a lot of situations where you are in the middle of 30 boats fleet and there are a lot of things happening. I don't think you will have time to understand how to control your position at the same time control the control lines. But when you are coming in the nice leading position in the fresh air and you have no one around you to bother, you can do whatever you want. And you actually can release the outhole, the Cunningham, the kicker in advance, and it's not gonna affect your speed because you already reached the mark. Yeah, if it's strong wind, you're not gonna do it in advance until you didn't reach the windward mark and the boat is already positioned on top of the mark. Because as soon as the sail starts to flap, the boat immediately stops. So we want to sail over the mark and then start releasing the kicker and the other stuff and then bear away. About the reaching. There is a question here about the reaching. If you are bearing away and you are going for the reach, also depending on the wind strength, yeah? In the strong wind, a lot of people are actually not able to lift the centerboard while the boat is still overpowered and there is no speed. There is a lot of forces on the centerboard until they don't reach the speed. Then it's there is a bit of relief on the centerboard, yeah. But with the control lines, it's also depending on the wind. In the lighter air, you can do everything with the control lines and lift the centerboard. You can do everything while rounding the mark. It's all can be done exactly in the spot of rounding the mark. Even like control lines and the centerboard can be done in one go. So in light wind, it's all in front of you. So you just go through the sequence and finish with the centerboard. But in the stronger wind, it's a little bit more difficult. If you see the blue boat here with the green arrow going across, we actually move aft a lot to counterbalance all the powers on the sail. Yeah, and very difficult to adjust any settings while bearing away. And you will see it in the next slide that we actually first settle the course and then we go for the control lines and the strong wind. So I'm going to the next slide, and you will see an example of the Greek sailor who was sailing in Canada last year. So this is the medium to strong wind. It's 18 knots of wind approaching the windward mark. So you can see that the kicker is in the hand and it's about to round the mark. Yeah, but he's not releasing it until he actually reaches the mark and he's on top of it. Yeah, once he in line with the mark, then he releases the kicker and then moves aft as much as possible. You can see in the picture number 2 that he's moving aft as far as possible. Probably it's not enough here in that slideshow, but we do move a lot back. One of the reasons is to counterbalance all the pressure the top of the sail is getting while bearing away. Remember, by releasing the kicker, we are powering up the top of the sail, and this force, it starts to bend the mast and create a lot of forces. So we need to counterbalance with our upper body. Plus, all this down pushing is digging the bow into the water. So we want to lift the bow, and you also can see in the picture number 3 that the rudder is coming out of the water a little bit. So we also want to sink the rudder and keep all the rudder under the water. Then it's more resistant and we can do a much nicer, better way. But as you can see in those 4 pictures, the main focus is to change the course. And then I don't have it here, but the next picture is showing that after he completed the full bearing away, he's going for the outhaul and the cannon hang and the kicker adjustment. Because as you can see here, the kicker is too loose and he will have to adjust a little bit the kicker tension for the downwind course. So this is the more stronger technique, stronger wind technique, which is quite good. And the main thing is to reach the windward mark and not to release the sail and the kicker in advance. Because if you do it in advance, the sail starts to flap and the boat immediately loses the speed. So we want to keep all the speed until we reach the mark to bear away with the momentum. We don't need extra sail power to bear away. We can bear away with completely flapping sail. Yeah, the most important to have the initial speed, which you had from the previous leg. So this is the things you can take on board, and I will check if there are some questions. There are no questions, so I'm gonna move to the next slide, not to keep it too long. As you can see, this is the pictures from the yesterday, and this is the last slide for today. A lot of people do not actually pay attention so much on the actual course. So a lot of people know that, oh, we need to create the heel, we need to create the right sail settings, the right trimming, but they do forget one most important thing. It's the aim. The aim is our mark, and we want to pass it in the most efficient way. Yeah. So in the most efficient way and in the shortest distance. So you don't want to exit too far away from the mark, and you want to have a nice exit as close as possible on the close hold course. So for that, my biggest advice to all you guys is to look at the mark while you're rounding the mark, because that's where the people are suffering the most. They're looking on the ratchet block, they're looking on all the things around the world except the mark. And that's where the exit becomes really wide and really inefficient. So beside the technique, how to heel the boat and thing, I made a big point here is to look on the mark while you are rounding the mark. And you can see that it's a pretty simple mark rounding in the light wind. You just approach a little bit wider with that you have space for the rotation because the boat takes a lot of space to turn. It's not an optimist which can turn in exactly the same spot. It's a bigger boat, and we need some time and distance to turn it from downwind to upwind. So keep it in mind and keep a little bit of distance away from the mark and try to go for a wider circle and just exit the mark with the close haul course and already in the full upwind mode. So you can see here that the person has to always look and understand where the boat is moving next, because that's where the people are losing the most of the important points by doing some wide mark roundings. And if it's in the big fleet, they're getting in the covered position straight away and they don't have any space to tuck away. They have to keep on losing and losing while they're just sailing if they would just do a better mark rounding. Yeah. So this is my last slide. I can share with you this slideshow. You can go over it again. And now we can unmute everyone and we can have